Good morning and welcome back to the TCP in the Morning Newsbreak. Guys, I am so excited. You know, I got all this Black Girl Magic going on this February, and I'm not done with it yet. I'm not done. So let me tell you, I want to introduce you all to one of my most favorite podcasters, Miss JuJu Bae, coming out of Baltimore with roots in West Virginia, South Carolina, and Alabama. She is a spiritual advisor, media, county conjurer, hoodoo practitioner, artist. She believes in liberation that is attainable with the support of our ancestors leading the way. She is a proud Spelman alumni, and she has a bachelor's degree in psychology. So yes, y'all, give it up for Miss JuJu Bae. How are you?
Hello, good morning. I'm wonderful. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
How was that for you? I know you usually do your introductions for your guests. How was that getting an introduction for yourself?
It's nice. I'm actually used to it now. People are interviewing me. So it's nice to actually be able to sit on the other side and have a different experience. I love to be interviewed. I really enjoy it. So I love to interview and be interviewed. So it's all good.
But that's what's up. That's what's up. I think it's a lot easier to be interviewed.
Yes.
It's a lot easier just to answer questions than to have to like come up with them and think about them, because you're like, I want to make sure this is a good conversation.
Yes, it is easier. That's why I like to be on this side sometimes.
All right. So let's get it started. So I know that you're from Baltimore. We do have a lot of residents who live in Lancaster who are transplants from Baltimore and everything like that. So before we get our conversation going, can you just introduce who is JuJu?
JuJu, hello everyone. My name is JuJu. I'm affectionately known as JuJu. Yes, I am from Baltimore, Maryland, West Baltimore, period. I grew up, born and raised in the city, and always super spiritual, not on this particular spiritual journey that I'm on, but always a very like devoted spiritual person, even as a child. Went to Catholic school here. Catholic schools are pretty big in Baltimore City, as particularly a lot of Black Catholics here. I know a lot of people don't think about Black people as being Catholic unless you're in New Orleans, but it's a lot of Black Catholics here in Baltimore too. And so I grew up in that tradition. And yeah, I left, went to college, went to Atlanta, and it changed my whole worldview. I think once I got out of the city. So from then on, things just bloomed and blossomed as they did, as they should. And yeah, that's me.
Wow. Now you do have one of the oldest HBCUs, and I feel like if I don't talk about this school, my husband's going to get me. But so you do have Morgan State right there in Baltimore. Why'd you go to Spelman over Morgan State?
I went to Spelman because I went on a college tour when I was 9 years old. And no, I was actually with my dad on a trip. I went on a business trip with my father to Atlanta. And while I was there, one of the wives, because it was like his fraternity trip, and one of his frat brothers' wives took all the kids to different schools in Atlanta, so we weren't bored. And so we went to Spelman, and I remember being 9 years old and walking on the campus and was like, you have to go to school here. You're going to school here. And that's it. Like it was I have no anybody in my family who went to Spelman. I have family who went to Morgan. That it's just when I was 9, something said I'm going here, and since then that was the only school I applied for college and got in.
Wow.
It was
and you got in.
I sure did. It was a divine. I knew I had to go. I had to. That was it.
That's awesome. And I think that kind of speaks to like this kind of journey, right? Like something just tells you like you just got to move in this direction, and you gotta go with it, because what do you do when people disagree?
Right.
You know, what do you do when people don't agree with every decision that you make for yourself? So I think that was kind of like an early foreshadowing for you.
Oh, it absolutely was. And I've never really explained it like that, but that is what happened. I never really made that connection of a foreshadowing, but yeah, that's it. It was, I trusted my intuition.
All right. Yeah, exactly. And while we're talking about trusting your intuition, what inspired the podcast? What inspired a little JuJu? I love the little beat. I'm always sharing it with friends. I'm like, oh, what is it? Hold on. All you need is a little JuJu. So yes. what inspired the podcast?
What inspired the podcast was the journey that I was on. I started to really get into and read about and learn about and talk to elders about ancestral veneration. So learning from my ancestors, I started to look at different spiritual practices outside of the norm, which for me was Christianity. So I was like, what are other people doing? What did my ancestors do prior to Christianity? And like, what is this pull that I feel? And so once I started to really just engross myself in all that information, I was like, I feel like I need to share this because I can't be the only one feeling pulled to something else or just something more. So that was it. I didn't go out seeking to be like a wonderful podcaster. I didn't know how to podcast. I really wasn't even familiar with podcasts too much before my own. So I just turned the mic on and I had a computer and I was like, let me talk about this and put it up and see what happens. And that's it. I was like, I want to connect with people who are going through what I'm going through.
Wow. And you know what? I always say anything that happens in your life, you walk into it. You make that conscious decision to start that journey, good, bad, or indifferent. And so when you decided to open up those doors and take this journey, I'm pretty sure you weren't thinking that, you were going to be having panels and speaking engagements and workshops and all kinds of stuff.
Nothing at all.
So would you happen to have a word for people who don't go with that thought process?
What thought process?
The process that's like, ooh, you should go on ahead and do this. And then they're like, you know what? No, I'm going to just maybe later or maybe after some other things happen.
Right. I think that's a common feeling for a lot of us that I still experience sometimes too. I feel a pull to do something. I'm like, that I can't do that. Nah, I'm gonna do that later when I'm more established in this or when I can do this or that. But when I think about all the times that I've trusted my intuition in myself, it hasn't steered me wrong. I think when we have something that's burning in our stomachs or in our hearts or in our spirits, that's like, I need to go and move forward to this. I need to go learn this. I need to start this thing. Trust that. I think that we just live in a society that tells us that that's not okay to trust, that we have to always go with facts. We have to always go with numbers. We have to always go with what makes quote unquote sense. But like, who taught you what that sense is? Who's to say that that is the sense? Like maybe the sense is within us. So I like to trust me first and make that a practice. And then I go from there. It hasn't steered me wrong. It has not steered me wrong.
Right. And the crazy thing is that we always talk about like common sense, but how many times in a day do we fuss at somebody for not using what we would think would be common sense?
That's such a good point. Because common sense to me would seem, if you feel something in your spirit every day, you wake up and know that you're supposed to do something and you don't do it, that don't sound like common sense. Like, I would think you should do it. If you feel so called and pulled, you dreaming about stuff, do it. This is your sign. If you're listening and that's you, this is your sign.
Right. Thank you. Because I'm tired of having this conversation with folks. And I'm like, well, open up a book. Oh, well, I'm afraid of what? Well, then I don't know what to tell you. Right. And growing up, that story, if you want to hide something from a Black person, put it in a book. Put it in a book. And so, I'm always referencing people, check out this book, check out that book. There's so much information out there. So with all the information being out there, how did you find Orisha or ancient or African religious teachings? How did you, go into a Catholic school, how did you find your way to ancestral veneration?
Well, I was at Spelman, and it wasn't anything that Spelman taught me. I just happened to be in Atlanta at the time. I was reading a book by Ayanna Van Zant, and I can't remember. It was called Interiors, and this isn't one of her popular books or anything. And in the book, she had on a page something about her ancestors, and the book wasn't about that at all. She was just referencing something that she heard growing up, or I think her grandmother used to have altars in her house. So it was just a paragraph on a page. And she described what the altar looked like. And then she went on to whatever she was saying in the book. But for some reason, that quote or that page stood out to me so much that I just in my dorm room set up an ancestor altar. I didn't really know nothing else. She just said like, oh yeah, and we kept water on it and we kept liquor on it and we would pray there. And so that's what I did. And I changed my water out. My friends would come in and be like, what's that? I'm like, it's my altar. I don't really know, but I just know that I have to have it up here again, just trusting something that I wasn't sure about, but knew I needed to do. And since from that point on, I didn't do too much with it around the time. I think in 2016-ish, Beyonce came out with Lemonade. And she, showed a lot of images and imagery of Oshun, which is in Orisha, in the Orisha tradition. And I was so mesmerized by not just Beyonce because she's Beyonce, but what are people talking about that with all this yellow and this beauty? And so from there, I started to do my research. And then from there, I found a godparent and I got readings and I was like, oh, I'm into this. I'm into this. I believe this.
Right. And you know what? I think I remember Beyonce referencing Sasha Fierce many years ago. And like, I go into this like trance-like state and I'm meditating. And I remember thinking like, oh, she into that devil stuff, because at this point, I don't know, but I'm like, that's kind of like what we're taught, right? So I'm like, ooh, so, and there were a lot of people who stopped listening to Beyonce when she started, speaking out and speaking up.
They did.
And now fast forward, I am quite surprised to see so many people into Black Parade that are into Black Parade.
Mm-hmm.
Ancestors on the wall, let the ghost chit chat. Like, she's doing a lot.
She's very direct in that song about what she believes.
Right. So there was no mistaking right there. We already know where Bae, Beyonce, and the team is at. So that's awesome. So now for yourself, I know that you do like Reiki and tarot. Is that a part of the religious teachings of ancestral veneration, or how does that play a role in growing spiritually?
Right. So not particularly. I practice Orisha tradition. I also practice a religion and tradition called Hoodoo. And I wouldn't and for your listeners, Hoodoo is a religion that was created by Black Americans, basically enslaved Africans who were taken to the South from Africa. And it was the new ways that they started studying the land, the ways that they started praying here, the ways that they created to survive. It was their survival, their spiritual survival and physical survival. And so I look to that religion as well because I'm descendant of enslaved African people who were brought to the United States. And I wouldn't particularly say that. So I don't read tarot cards. I do read cards. I read playing cards. So just regular, Ace of Spades, Two of Diamonds. I read those cards spiritually for people. I wouldn't say that it's part of Orisha tradition. Hoodoos do read cards and do card readings, I would say. And Reiki specifically is a Japanese healing modality and it's energy work. So I just wanted to be attuned in Reiki because I think people are familiar with that way to kind of bring balance to your body and chakra points, etc. So no, it's not particularly a part of African traditional religion or diaspora religion, but I think it's useful. So that's why I also practice Reiki.
Okay, awesome. But you know what though, I love that, just taking different bits and pieces from different teachings and making them your own and incorporating them into your life so that you can be the best version of yourself.
Yes, exactly. I think there's nothing wrong with that. Why not?
Right, exactly. This idea of like the one size religion fits all, I think that's probably a part of the discourse because we keep trying to fit into a box where we probably shouldn't be.
Exactly.
So, Miss JuJu, while we got you on a call, how can people connect with you? I know you got a Patreon, and people can connect with you and reach out and support what you're doing. Let's talk about that for a minute. How can people connect with you? How can they listen to your podcast? How can they reach you? Are you going to have an event soon?
So my podcast is again a little Juju podcast. It is streaming on every platform for the most, every platform that you can find a podcast. Even if you just Google a little Juju podcast, spelled out just how it sounds, you'll be able to find that. You can find me on my website. It's JuJu Bae, itsjujubae.com. There, I try to keep updated with the events that I have coming up. Nothing right now, but you can also reach out to me through email with any type of business inquiries, and you could book a Reiki session with me. I'm not doing readings currently. I don't know if I'm ever going to go back to doing public readings because it is a lot. Even though I love doing readings, it's just a lot. But you can book me for Reiki from my website as well. And then on my Patreon is where I talk and get more in depth about some things that I talk about on the podcast, or just any information that I may have if people want to learn more. I'm writing articles. I do reading of the month up there, just a whole bunch of different things. So if you're interested in getting a little deeper, you can find me on patreon.com/JuJuBae.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, guys. So now you know. Now you know. So for some of my avid readers out there, could you recommend a few books for people who are starting their journey, who may just want to put an altar or, find out what is an Orisha? Could you recommend some books?
I would say Finding Soul on the Path of Orisha. I think that's the name of it. I cannot remember who it is by right now, but it's by a priestess. I would say Mojo Working is another book to read. Pretty much anything by Zora Neale Hurston. But I have a book list on my website. So if you go to itsjujubae.com and click book list, I got a whole thing up there so that you can go and just click the link and go get the book if you're interested.
Awesome. And guys, that actually, let me tell you something. Before I found JuJu, I was actually reading the first book that she recommended. I swear, I think this book brought us together. So this is my copy of it.
Yeah, Find the Soul on the
But
Path.
yeah, so go ahead, find this book. It's a very easy read. She has great little stories and anecdotes in it. So it's really nice. And as far as booking sessions and reaching out to you, can you let our audience members know your website and your Instagram one more time?
Yeah, so my website is itsjujubae.com. So it's jujubae.com. There you can book a Reiki session or reach out to me about any business inquiries, etc., media things. And then you can also find me on Instagram at itsjujubae. It's JuJu Bae.
All right, guys. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Guys, stay tuned for more TCP in the morning. Hey, listen, don't forget, follow JuJu on Instagram, follow her on her Facebook, visit her website, book her for a group reading. Hey, guys, and also, if you book her for a reading, y'all bring her up to Lancaster, you better call me, text me, Facebook me. You better find my number.
Okay.
But because I want to be there. So yeah, guys, stay tuned. If you have any questions for Miss JuJu Bae, if you don't drop them in the comments for us to send them to her, you are more than welcome to reach out to her on her website. They are very responsive. And let's support Black. Stay tuned.